Hey, this is Jordan Woods Robinson. I play Eric on The Walking Dead. You are listening to the Dave and Creech Show.
This is the Dave and Creech Show, the only podcast where podcaster CJ Creech and actor Dave Sheridan come together to talk all things entertainment with your favorite entertainers. Want to ask our guests a question? Tweet them to @DaveSheridan or @CJCNOV88, and they may be asked to our guests live on the show. We do have to ask you stay seated during the podcast because this ride may get a little bit hilarious. Now here's your hosts, Dave and Creech.
Hey everyone out there, welcome to episode 57 of the Dave and Creech Show. I am Creech, and while Dave Sheridan is once again shooting another movie out there in Hollywood, I am joined by former guest host and all-around awesome being who just happens to be my daughter, Miss Alexis Marie Creech, better known as Lexi. How are you doing today, Lexi?
Good.
Good? Okay. Well, we've got a great show for you this evening. The main part of this episode is actually going to be an interview with Jordan Woods Robinson. Now, Jordan just finished his role on The Walking Dead. His character died this week. So he's no longer on the show, and we're going to talk about basically the last half of this season that we are basically between 7 and 8 that we haven't talked about prior, and what's next for him and all that good jazz. But before that, I do want to catch up a little bit on pop culture because as it's been a while, I mean, it hasn't been a long time since our last podcast, but talking about pop culture in general, haven't really done much of that. So I'm going to catch you up on what I've been doing, and Lexi's going to catch you up on what she's been doing. So it's just going to be a whole bunch of fun this episode. So we're not going to waste any time. We're going to go ahead and get into it. So, Lexi, do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first? You want me to go first. Okay, she's pointing at me, obviously, out there, those that can't see. Well, I've been caught up in two things recently. As you most likely know, I do play some video games. Not like I have a lot of time to play them, but when I do enjoy a video game or two. And early last month, I picked up, for an early birthday present, WWE 2K18, and I've been playing that quite a bit. And you know what? I have to say, I'm enjoying it, but my co-host over here for the night has literally driven a stake into my heart while playing this game, because she's not going to want to admit it, so I'll admit it. We were playing a ladder match. Now, those who don't watch wrestling,
Not the ladder.
yes, we're gonna get to that. You can giggle over there, because I'm still feeling the sting of this. But basically, in a ladder match, you have to climb up a ladder and grab a belt or a briefcase or whatever is hanging above the ring. If you grab it and you take it down, you win. Okay, so I'm playing this match with my daughter, and obviously me and one of my other friends, Brian, who's, I believe, been a co-host of the show at least once. But we're playing it. I get up to the top. I am within moments of winning this match when little Miss Lexi decides to run up the ladder, punch me in the stomach, and I was thinking, okay, maybe she's just learning the buttons, okay? But then she punches me not once, but 3 times in the stomach, which makes my character, wince in pain and let go of the briefcase. And then when I'm thinking she's had enough, that she just wanted to do that, she pushes me off the top, causing me to fall down and roll out of the ring. And Brian comes in, throws her off the ladder, puts it back up, and wins. And you know what? I still feel that sting of betrayal every time we play that game.
I don't want to play that game ever again.
Well, I don't want to play you in that game ever again. I'll stick to other games where you don't drive a stake into my heart. Moving on, from the betrayal of my own blood. We have actually got a show that's been out for a year, and it's one that we haven't talked about on the show. We haven't had anybody from the show on the podcast, and it's a show that I put off watching because I don't know. I just have some weird little thing where like I don't really want to get into shows when everybody's talking about it. That's the main reason why I've barely watched any of Game of Thrones. And that's why it's taken me almost a year, actually over a year, to watch Stranger Things. I wound up buying season 1 on a lark about 2 weeks ago, mainly because I like the packaging. I am one of those guys that's like a sucker for packaging, so if you've got some cool little package to whatever your movie is or show, and even if it's crappy or I know nothing about it, I'll probably wind up buying it. So when they came out with the VHS packaging for Stranger Things, I was like, I gotta get it. And then I brought it home, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna watch a couple episodes while I'm eating lunch, and then I'll watch the rest later, if I'll find some time too. And lo and behold, I literally binge watched all 8 episodes. It was like 1 o'clock when I started. By 9 or 10 o'clock, it was done. I binged every episode of season 1 in that time. And obviously the ending leaves you hanging. And so I was extremely glad I waited this long because I wound up only having to wait 2 days for season 2. But I didn't binge watch all of them at once. I did let it drug it out pretty much over 2 weeks. But Lexi over here has been enjoying Stranger Things too. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you like most about Stranger Things?
I like about Stranger Things that they get to find the little kid.
They get to find the little kid. Well, yeah, and I think you like that there's actually kids in this, on top of adults, because you're a kid, so you like seeing kids have some, fun adventures or scary adventures. And I agree, and I thought it was funny because, as you know, if you've been listening to this show long enough, we did press in Atlanta for Days of the Dead back in February. And the entire kids cast was down there, other than 11. But all the rest of the other kids were there to do meet and greets and photo ops and all that. And Lexi hadn't watched the show at that point, so she didn't care, and I didn't really care either. But I took a picture of for like a press shot. I took a picture of Gayton, who plays Dustin, interacting with some of his fans for our webpage, and I showed it to her the other day, and I was like, look, you were right by these people, and you didn't even know who they were then. And she was like, ah! It was actually pretty funny. But hopefully, you know what, hopefully they'll be back for a Days of the Dead soon. Like, it hasn't been officially announced on the podcast, but I'll go ahead and do some announcements because we haven't announced anything in a long time, but we are already approved to do press at Days of the Dead Atlanta and Charlotte next year, so I will be there. You never know. Dave Sheridan might show up too, but once again, that depends on his filming schedule. Lexi will be there. I will be there doing interviews. But on top of that, I will go ahead and announce some of the upcoming guests on the show, because we haven't announced guests in a while. It's usually just I will pop up with an episode literally out of nowhere with, hey, here's a guest for this. But actually, within the next couple of days, you're going to get another podcast 2 in 1 week, which is crazy for us, I know. When you're probably like, we're lucky to get 2 in 1 month. But we've got another one with Steve Stanulis, who's an actor. He's got a new movie that he directed coming out called Clinton Road. It's a horror film that stars him and Ice-T and a bunch of other actors. It looks really good. But he's also a former New York City police officer, and he's also been a Chippendale. And if that wasn't enough, he was also the bodyguard to Kim Ye, who's Kanye West and Kim Kardashian. We don't talk about that, obviously, because that's not our type of podcast. but it is something that he's done prior. But we've got that podcast coming out with him, which hopefully Dave will be on the intros and outros for that one. We're going to try to get with him in the next day or two, but I wanted to have this one out tonight while the Walking Dead episode's still fresh and nobody else has died, because Lord knows everybody's dying now on the show. But we've got 2 extra guests coming up soon. Adolfo Dorta, who we've already had once to promote Days of the Dead. Atlanta 2016 will be back on the show, as will James Fraser, who it's about time every year around this time we bring James on to go over what has happened with Walker Stalker over the year, what's coming up, and we get that little status report over how Walker Stalker Con Atlanta did. So we've got some really good guests coming up. We've got some actual fresh faces too, which we can't quite announce, but there are some pretty cool people coming up that we're in the process of scheduling for everybody. So while Dave is filming, once again, he's literally the reason he's not on this episode is he's been shooting almost back to back, and then the very little time he's had, he's went ahead and done stuff with his family, like this past weekend he went camping. But he's shooting stuff, like since he's moved back to LA, he's been constantly busy. So we're still trying to arrange his schedule around mine, which mine's generally open, but with the 3-hour difference, it makes things a little tricky, but don't worry guys, we'll get to it. Obviously he really wants to do the show, and I really want to bring Dave and Creech to you. So we're going to go ahead and figure that out. We've got some guests from Hatchet 4, a.k.a. Victor Crowley, that he's arranging to come on the show. But we're going to get everything sorted out. I know that seems like a running joke where we're like, Dave's not going to be here this week, or, well, I'm filling in for Creech because it's happened. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and get everything squared away over the next couple of weeks, and try to get a recording schedule down where we're recording on a certain day so we can have new fresh episodes every week, and you're not having to go back in through the old Dave and Creech episodes to get your Dave and Creech fix. Before we get into this interview, my podcast co-host this week, I do want to check in. As you know, she just had a birthday not too long ago, so she just turned 6. And she just started school. So before we get into this interview, I just want to know if there's anything else you'd like to talk about, Lexi, or if you'd like to just let everybody know how your school's going.
My school's going great. I get to learn lots of stuff.
Are you wanting to elaborate on that, or is that enough?
I learned how to stack cups.
She learned how to stack cups. You know what? That is pretty impressive, because I am just turned 29, almost 30, and I can't even stack cups without them falling all over the ground. So you know what? I am very impressed. What else have you been learning?
I've been learning how to count to 100.
That's a pretty good number to count to, and we're going to hold you to that on one of these future podcasts for you to actually count to 100 with us. I don't know why this randomly brought it up right now, but to those that don't know, my daughter is an avid video gamer as well, if you couldn't tell by her pushing me off a ladder. But she loves playing some Friday the 13th as well. And speaking of Friday the 13th, I do have an interview that's been completed with Shelly from Friday the 13th Part 3, and we're chatting about Friday the 13th, the game. Now that interview will probably be out in the next week or so, but I don't know why I kind of point A to B that, but that's another interview you got looking forward to you. Is there anything else, Lexi, you want to say before we get ready to intro this interview with Jordan Woods Robinson?
Yes. In art, I learned how to make a rainbow fish.
In art, she learned how to make a rainbow fish. Well, you seem to be having all the fun these days. Now, I, on the other hand, am here doing this podcast. I don't know if it's a fair trade. I think I'd rather be making rainbow fish. But, with that being said, We're going to get ready to get into this interview with Jordan Woods Robinson. I hope you guys enjoy. So, everybody, I am here with Jordan Woods Robinson, who just wrapped up his role of Eric on The Walking Dead. He's been the talk of Facebook and the Twitter sphere this past week, and he's also was on Talking Dead, so he's had a very busy week. So, thank you for taking some time, Jordan, to come back on the show.
My pleasure, my friend. Am I still the reigning champion as far as number of times I've been on here?
You are, and you're so far ahead that everybody else is going to have their work cut out for them to catch up to you. But thank you again for coming on. Now, I guess the obvious starting point would be, your character just died on the show. When did you find out that it was indeed Eric's time?
So I got a call from Scott Dimple. I think it was the second or third day of filming. So the very first day of filming on season 8 was actually the speech where we were all around the flatbed truck and Rick and Maggie and Ezekiel were up there rallying the troops, and that was the first day. And I remember Scott being there, and we talked and hung out for a little while, and then I think it was that night I got a call saying, "Hey, Scott would love to set up a meeting with you over the next couple of days." And I was like, "Oh boy." But we weren't able to meet together in person, but Scott and I talked, and it was about 45 minutes, and it was a great conversation. And I knew from the very beginning that how much thought and love and time had gone into telling the story for Eric, and he explained that we were going to be at the outpost and that we were going to be that I specifically was going to be doing lots of fighting, that eat your Wheaties, and he said, that it's just this real like Rambo moment where you finally step up and say, no, it's enough is enough, and something snaps and you go and you cross the line and you save a couple people, and it's a big heroic moment where you step up. And he said that in that adrenaline fueled charge, you also get shot and don't even realize it. And that leads us into the next episode. And then he talked about the scene under the tree, which sounded beautiful, but it was really when he mentioned the final shot that I was in with Eric walking across the field and Aaron tracking him and not being able to go to him. That's when I really knew like this was going to be just beautiful. I actually had lots of people trying to come up and apologize. Scott tried to apologize, and Matt Negretti, who wrote the episode, tried to apologize, and a lot of the actors were, just trying to console me. And the whole time, and even to this day, it never happened while filming or during the whole process or even afterwards. I haven't been sad about it at all. I haven't mourned it, because I thought it was such a beautiful, poetic, loving ending to my character, and it fueled Aaron's character so much, and so I was just from the very beginning, I was so behind it 100%, and so grateful to Scott and everyone else for coming up with that storyline and for telling me early enough that I could have that conversation with Ross, and we were on the same page going into the next couple of episodes, knowing what was going to happen. And that allowed us to really, be aware of that arc and be able to tell it from beginning to the end. And, but yeah, so first day of filming. That's the answer to the question.
There was a very Rambo moment. I was half expecting you to don a red bandana when you were leading the charge
and take off my shirt. Well, there was actually in one of the earlier scripts, I think in the first version that came out, there was actually a moment where I went even more badass, or even more off the deep end, I guess. And I actually grabbed someone and used them as a human shield while I was running into the compound. like just had some more moments, like there's just more of that just, oh shit kind of stuff. And I don't think that lasted very long. I think within the next edit. So Rosemary Rodriguez directed episode number 2, and she was just amazing to work with. Just an incredible experience for me. And I think it was kind of her insight into that episode where she's like, look, this character has, he's been hesitant this whole time. Just seeing him cross that line, just seeing him make that impulsive decision to cross the line and to run in and to protect other people and to shoot and to kill, that is already a huge story arc for him, And so if we go too much further than that, I don't think it's going to be as believable or as powerful. And in the end, I think she was right. We had that conversation many times, but it's just a funny little trivia that originally I was just gonna just fly off the rails and grab, be shooting gangster style and all sorts of other fun stuff. But I think it's done very tastefully and very, very well.
I agree. And I do like how, in the end, the final scene that we see with you and Ross is really a callback to the first scene that we saw with you and Ross, and that, you were injured and he was coming in to check on you, and the first scene, and then the last one, you're wounded mortally, and he's basically there to console you, and then you make the decision, you tell him to go. So it's kind of I think neat how they had a callback to really the first scene we ever saw you guys.
Absolutely, and you know what? That's something that Ross and I were aware of too. And there's another moment in our final scene where we actually we made it a point to want to hold each other by the back of the neck, by the the base of the skull, and put our foreheads together, because that is one of the iconic images of Eric and Aaron from the comics, and one of the first things we see of them. And we wanted to make sure that was in there, like it's and that was just an acknowledgement of the I guess you can think about it this way, but like the other universe in which these characters live, where they are in the comics and they're also in the show, but just working in all of those little Easter eggs, just acknowledges the larger life that these characters have and how long they've been here. People were introduced to Eric and Aaron in the comics far before the show, and this took that all the way back, and just allowed everything to influence everything else. And it was a mirror image of our first time together, and I did think that was a beautiful way to end it for the writers. Obviously made that choice to end it that way, and I thought that was a beautiful nod. And Ross and I tried to work in a couple of those moments as well for ourselves, to know that we were paying homage to the larger Walking Dead world, and not just to the one scene that we're in right now.
For sure. And another thing with the death scene that really struck me, we're 100 episodes plus into the show, and we've had characters die, we've had characters turn into walkers and then be killed, but your character, I mean, we've seen people left alone before, but by choice. But yours was a lot different. And then normally when we see our favorite characters die and turn into walkers, they usually don't have a very a nice death afterwards. They usually don't last very long because obviously the team, family, or whoever puts them down. But you got to stumble off into your next chapter.
What's going to happen over there in the woods for Eric, I wonder, his next chapter? I know, I was actually joking with, who was I joking with? I don't know, I've had some friends reach out to me and say, man, I really wish, I'm holding on to hope that you're not actually dead, that you're just, you lost your car keys and you're going into the woods and you can't hear Aaron because of other noises and blah, blah, blah. And it's, I think Aaron, or Ross, said it really, but I had the same thought that, again, this is another throwback to kind of the pilot where Morgan has his wife out there who has turned and is no longer his wife, but it's hard to reconcile that. It's hard to bring yourself to that conclusion, just like we saw Herschel on the farm too. I mean, like, it's your family and they are the same flesh and blood. There's just a different organism inside calling the shots. It's a virus now instead of a central nervous system, and other than that, that is still the person that you have loved, and really difficult to see, someone having to battle that. And as a viewer, I hope that we do get to see Eric in the future as a walker, for Aaron to be able to take him out. I hope he has that closure, because I think that's going to be pretty rough, to go through that. And I hope that he can battle that and hopefully get some kind of answer in the end.
We can always just hold out hope, that maybe Eric is now just kind of becoming like a double agent. Like he's not necessarily dead, but obviously with the blood and everything, he might just confuse the walkers enough that he can just kind of get by like Michonne did for so many seasons. He might just be going to carol his way into Negan's sanctuary.
Right, and he just comes right back, and I did also have the thought that it'd be great if he came back and, he had the antidote. Maybe it's the redhead. Maybe the redheaded gene allows him to come back to life. That'd be awesome. But if not that, I had a thought. I was like, how awesome would it be? Oh, I have two scenarios. It'd be, how awesome would it be if Eric is the walker that takes out Negan, just sneaks up behind him at one point, just buries his teeth into his neck, and that's it, just takes him down. And that would be pretty cool. And then also, scenario B, how awful would it be if Eric is the walker to take out Aaron? And same situation, Aaron's just fighting, and then a walker comes in, buries his teeth into his neck, and it turns out to be his former lover. It would just be, it would be ridiculous. I don't think either of those are going to play out, but knowing that now, just those, it could be a really cruel irony to have this guy out there walking around, and some people have said he is still fighting. He's out there. He's going to be able to take out some saviors now, hopefully, that's a cool way to think of it. And that was kind of the whole idea of the second episode too, was we had nothing to lose, because even if we did die during the outpost battle, we would still be fighting because we would be able to help take out saviors. And so that allowed everyone to say, yes, I'm gonna fight as hard as I can. And it's true now where, now that Eric's joining the herd, maybe we'll see him in the future, and maybe he'll actually be able to really take some, do some good while he's out there.
Yep. That's what we're all hoping for. Eric carrying a cameo somewhere, maybe in season 9.
Yeah, hope so.
I'm thinking if everybody gets their way and they're asking for this whole Jesus and Aaron thing, maybe you should show up at that point. So then if he were to try to think about getting with Jesus, then Zombie Eric shows up. He's like, well, nope, I can't.
No! Yeah. And you know what? Everyone's saying that, and I understand the impulse. They're both good-looking guys. And of course, Eric would want Aaron to be happy and all that stuff. However, beyond that, it is just an impulse. It is so impulsive, and it's actually in many ways quite ignorant to think, oh, hey, these two guys are gay, they're going to get into a loving relationship, you don't see all of the other heterosexual characters on the show and everyone rooting them on to hook up with everyone else. That's not it. The only reason why they're saying Aaron and Eric, or Aaron and Jesus, gosh, that's weird to say, is because they're both homosexual characters. And so that's just because two people are homosexual does not mean that they are going to have any sort of connection whatsoever. But who knows? Maybe they will.
Yeah, I mean, I know they eventually apparently do in the comics, but it's way too soon. I mean,
Yeah.
Aaron and Eric, it had been established that they'd been, together for a long time. And much like with Rick, how it took him a long time to get over Lori. I mean, it's going to take Aaron some time to grieve. So I don't
Yeah,
foresee
exactly.
him just immediately shacking up with anybody in the near future on the show.
Yep. Yep.
Now,
I hope
speaking
not.
of the show, now your character is done on there. Now you've left one job, and now you've got you revealed on Talking Dead that you're working on Homeland. Now, in the meantime, or in the middle, in between, because it's been a while since you shot The Walking Dead, have you been working on anything else? Is there any other shows that are about to air that maybe you're going to be a part in?
Yeah, so I can't wait to talk more about Homeland. All I can say now is that I'm going to be on it. And there's another show called Good Behavior on TBS that is that I had a small part on in the first season, actually in the pilot. And I've been asked back to do another episode, so that's going to be coming up here in the second season. So people can watch out for that. And then, of course, my full-time gig is as a Blue Man in Blue Man Group at Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida. And I'm here all the time. Do that full time. So anywhere, multiple times a week, most days, I'll say. But it's cool. People reach out to me on social media and say, "Hey, I'm traveling down to Orlando. Are you going to be there? What shows are you in?" I know my schedule a couple of weeks out, so I can usually help and say, "Great, I'll be here. If you want to swing by, that'd be awesome." And then they get to see a kick-ass show. I get to connect with people who I've only met online, which is really cool, and we get a photo together. And it's been an unexpected yet very cool and exciting way to get to have another connection in meat space, as a friend of mine calls it, not online, but actually here with muscle and blood, where we are just people walking around.
Very true. Yeah. And I'm going to have to throw my name in there too. I need to, I keep saying it, but I need to come down and see it because I've never been to a Blue Man show. So it'd be
Dude.
interesting to see Blue Man show and to watch you perform.
Yes, and bring your beautiful daughter, because the show is like, kids just get the show. They get it, because, I mean, the character is very kid-like in nature. They're seeing many things for the first time, but yet they instantly kind of understand, and they're ready to explore, and they're ready to do things and to tackle obstacles and stuff, which every kid is ready to do as well. And so they get it, and they also call us out on stuff. Like, some of our hardest shows are when we're performing for a large school group or something, and sometimes they'll just be like, "Nope, that wasn't funny." They'll just call us out. They're like, "No, I see no truth in that. I'm not going to respond to that." And it makes all of us go, "Oh crap, yeah, we gotta." That's true. We're performing for people who actually think this way. We should really kind of be aware of that and change our thoughts, and but anyway, yes, please come down.
For sure. And now, I mean, as we discussed at the very beginning of the podcast, you're pretty much on the record for the longest running guest. So I don't know if there's anybody out here who doesn't, but just in case there's maybe a new listener here or there who has missed every single one of your interviews, from this point on, where can they follow you, to keep up with all things Jordan Woods Robinson?
So probably the easiest way to find me is on my website, which is just jordanwoodsrobinson.com. And that's got, a newsletter and a blog that I started up but have a hard time keeping up with for some reason. All of my social media links, videos, music, all that good stuff, media gallery. But then I'm also pretty active on Twitter. And then I at least post a lot on Instagram and Facebook. However, I'm more likely to have a conversation on Twitter if somebody reaches out to me there.
Yeah, I can imagine your Facebook and Instagram are probably being besieged by, well-meaning fans sending their love, maybe a couple of haters, but for the most part, obviously a lot of love being sent your way with
It,
your character on The Walking Dead.
it's been overwhelming in the best way. It's just been so lovely getting this overwhelming response. And yeah, there are a couple people, but everyone is entitled to their opinion, and these people are just wrong.
Exactly.
But it's just the messages. And I mean, Ross and I have been, people have reached out to us in the past, but it seems to be even stronger now, and it's just really lovely to hear. People aren't just like putting up a heart emoji or like a frowny face emoji or being like R.I.P. Eric. There so many people are choosing to like share their stories. They are choosing to, even if it's just a couple sentences of why this relationship is important to them, or why this character was important to them, or why the story of the show is important to them, whatever that is. It's how it's brought their families together, or how it's helped them understand someone else. I've had mothers coming up to me and saying, your characters were introduced on the show at the same time that my son came out to the world, and that was such a big moment in our lives, and thank you for, bringing these characters to such an important show and a large show, and representing them with strength and love and trust and partnership and companionship. And it really helped, our family that was already going through a similar story of feeling open and vulnerable and all that stuff, as we got to learn new things about each other, that we're also seeing it playing out on one of our favorite shows. And that was, I've had that happen multiple times, not just from a couple people, and I think that's fascinating. I think that's so great, and it's so heartwarming to receive all these messages. And I'm trying to respond to many of them. Sometimes all I can do is like something, or send a quick thank you or something, but hopefully people will continue to reach out, and as the flow starts to go down a little bit, which it will, hopefully I'll have more time to really start to engage more in these conversations, because it's great just knowing that I can be a part of that for some people.
For sure. Well, I think that's pretty much going to be all the time we have today. I know you've got to go off and do other work things. So I do want to thank you for taking the time. It's always truly a pleasure to have you on the show. And we have you on because, you're amazing, and I'd like to consider you a good friend, and we always love to promote everything Jordan Woods Robinson. So if you've got any more shows come up, obviously, like you said, when Homeland comes out, any upcoming music, anything like that, just let us know, and we'll be glad to spread it out there and have you back on to continue your record-breaking streak.
Let's do it. To the moon, TJ. Yeah, thanks, man. And it's always a pleasure. And I do have some other stuff, other irons in the works. So I will make sure to reach out to you guys, and hope to talk to you very soon.
Welcome back, guys. That was the interview with Jordan Woods Robinson. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, it is a extreme pleasure to have Jordan on the show. He's actually been a guest on this show before this was even Dave and Creech, back when it was Creech Questions. I believe this is his 6th or 7th appearance on a podcast of mine, and we've been podcasting with him almost literally since he showed up on The Walking Dead. So I thought it would be kind of cool to look back on his very first appearance on the show. I did a little skit called the Alexandria recruiting video, and basically it was an audio skit of the video that they played when you were coming to Alexandria. Because as you know, his character Eric was a recruiter at the very beginning. So without any further delay, we're going to go ahead and play that. Hi there, my name is Scott, and welcome to Alexandria. By now, you've had plenty of time to meet everybody around the town and acclimate to your new surroundings. Everyone around here has a job or skill that they bring to the table. Pete is our doctor, and also the town drunkard in private. He may beat on his wife, but we don't ask any questions, and neither should you. Deanna is our leader, and though she may not listen to your advice until it comes back to bite her, she cares about us all nonetheless. Due to recent additions within our community, our head of police, Rick Grimes, thought it would be a good idea to put together training videos for all jobs, so you will be ready by your starting day. You have been chosen for a spot in our
recruiting team.
While you will be working directly under Aaron and Daryl, we have brought retired recruiter Eric here today to give you important tips on how to stay alive in a world full of the undead. Here's Eric with number 1.
Step 1. Hide.
It is of utmost importance that you know your surroundings and are able to hide at a moment's notice. Just make sure you keep out of the way of those pesky passenger tires. Am I right, Eric? Well, continuing, here is the second, final, and most important rule to know.
Step 2. Don't get killed.
To be a good recruiter, making sure you aren't killed is a must. If you see a shady group of people that looks like they are up to no good, odds are they probably are. Not only will you need to judge people by their appearance, you must do so without alerting them to your presence. Silence is your friend. If you come to locations blaring loud techno music, odds are you will be eaten before we can even remember your name. Being quiet will not only keep you relatively safe from the bad people, but walkers as well. As you can hear, the walkers can give away your presence just as much as any human can. One bite from these rotting corpses and you'll be exiled from Alexandria to fend for your own until you die or find a cure, whichever comes first. Now before we leave you to start your job, I personally want to give you one recommendation. When dealing with Daryl Dixon, do not mention the name Beth. If you do, he will mope around our community for hours weeping and burning himself with cigarettes. Trust me, you don't want to see this happen. It is the absolute worst. Now I hope you paid attention to these rules and have a successful run as Alexandria's newest recruiter. Hope you bring us some amazing people to our community. Well, I hope you enjoyed that, I guess. I know there really wasn't much meat to those bones right there. I mean, it was kind of quick. It was last minute, but I still enjoyed making it. It was a little fun little distraction back in those Creech Questions days. Now, Lexi, before we go, you have your own personal Jordan Woods Robinson story that I feel like we should go over, and then what we'll do is, because you know Jordan Woods Robinson, and I'll give you a chance to say something to him. Maybe if you want to leave him a message as he continues on with his career. Now, a long time ago, and by long time ago I mean within the past year or so, Lexi first got her podcasting bug when, I think you were 4 when this happened. But I got her a tablet for Christmas, and what she would do is she would turn on the camera and record herself podcasting. And she showed it to me one time, and she showed me the video, and so I hooked it up to the computer and found the file to send to Jordan. And basically, Lexi was carrying on with the podcast, and she had mentioned that this was her first episode, and her special guest today was Jordan Woods Robinson, who plays Eric on The Walking Dead. So, since I had him on Facebook, I went ahead and sent him the video that Lexi had made. And, I just thought he'd get a kick out of it. But to show the awesome person that Jordan is, what did he do, Lexi?
He said, wow.
Well, yes, he did say wow. But if we were to elaborate a little bit more, I know you probably haven't watched the video in a while, but I've got it somewhere. But he basically thanked Lexi for having him as a guest on well, let's go back. Basically, the next morning after I sent that, he wound up sending me a video in response to Lexi, and he thanked Lexi for asking him to be on the podcast, and saying that he would love to come back on her show anytime. And that just goes to show you how awesome of a person Jordan is, because he didn't have to do that, but he did, and she got a major kick out of it. And it's something that I personally hold near and dear to my heart, and I'm sure Lexi's watched it quite a few times after, maybe not so much recently because we got a new phone, but it's still on there, and we will definitely revisit that again soon. Now, honestly, I believe that is going to wrap it up for this show. I know this is a relatively short podcast. It's about 20 minutes, and Lexi's been honestly kind of pretty quiet, but she did have school today. She's a little tired. We're all a little tired. I am going to have this up in a matter of minutes. Obviously, when you're listening to it, it is up. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I really hope you enjoyed the interview. We will see you in the next couple of days with another episode of the Dave and Creech Show.
Bye-bye.
Shut up and sit down.
Thank you for listening to the Dave and Creech Show. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of Dave and CJ. These views and opinions do not necessarily represent those of Creech Creative Productions or any of its affiliates.